Hello, hi everyone. This is Professor Sung-Soo Hwang again. And in case you may not remember who I am, and we are on the subject of the research, doing a research within the Christian context. So, introduction to the academic research within the Christian context is the subject of this class, and this is week number 4. And we were discussing and learning about the definition and the concept of research and in general. And we have learned very broad definition of research, and then also academic research, then pastoral research. In research in broadest sense, would be our day-to-day, daily encounter with the reality to appropriate our existence. So yeah, any human existence, life, so-called life, does require some degree of research, even though we are not aware of that we are doing the research. So basically, human does think and then evaluate and make decisions to appropriate the situation or the appropriate problems. Because life is, as we know, is full of problems and issues. That's a reality. And then it requires research. Research as a strategic approach or logical, rational, and judgmental response to the given reality. That's the kind of research that we have defined in broadest sense. So every human being with a average normal mindset would do their research as they go on with their life. And then there's something called academic research, which is limited to the certain academic fields, such as sociology, psychology, engineering, physics, chemistry, and medicine. When you are doing research on these fields, it will be academic research. Or you can say professional research. So research within certain profession. Say, if you're a medical doctor specialized in dealing with the cancer, and you're doing the research, that would be more of professional research, a little broader than the academic research. So each term's definition of research has own domain. And the pastoral research that we are talking about is somewhere like this. So it involves some academic research. If we are doing theology, or we are doing Christian counseling, research on Christian counseling, that would involve some degree of academic research. But as a pastor and Christian counselor, your research also has to do with the professional research. And at the same time, there's a general research that is beyond academic, or broader than the academic. So academic research usually has to do with the material that you're dealing with. Okay, now we are going on to the next topic, and defining and trying to understand the concept, or conceptualize the research. And to conceptualize the research, you need to get to familiar with research categories and research types, which is usually determined, the research types and research categories determined by the subject and the method. Your subjects of research may determine the category of research. For example, you're doing the research on human behavior, or say Christian growth of youth between the age 11 and 17 in Korean American church context. Say that's your research. Then you're just narrowing down your subject, and because of the nature of the study, Christian growth, and you're dealing with the youth, which is in a Korean American context, the church context, then that would be more like a qualitative research. So by subject, and then the subject of research automatically lead to the methods of research. So subject and method goes hand in hand. It goes together. You may not separate method and subject. So once you define or decide on the topics or subject, another word for subject would be topics. Topic or topics of your study, your research. So research topics, research subject will determine the method. So these categorize your kind of study. So categories and types. First, quantitative versus qualitative, and inductive versus deductive, exploratory, descriptive, and causal, and also by approaches, example, case study, and also by design. We'll go into more details on this, but not into too much extensive detail, because these research methods and strategies we'll discuss in the later part of this lesson. Okay, just to introduce you to the concepts. I mean, this is a level where we are trying to conceptualize what the research especially the academy research, is about. And we're trying to, introduce ourselves to the academy research within the Christian setting or Christian context. There are two basically types of research. One is called quantitative, and the other one is qualitative. Usually, qualitative research has to do with human nature and human interaction, something that is personal, character, interpersonal. So most psychology and sociology co-studies those researches. Subject of sociology, psychology, and Christian counseling. These are fall into the category of qualitative study, where you cannot measure the data by quantifiers such as length, width, weight, or even the degree or percentage. Yeah, but percentage is used both in the qualitative and quantitative. A lot of the surveys are done to quantify the quality, but still it falls as a qualitative study. If we are putting out the survey about the human behavior, human thoughts, thinking, emotions, these things are about the quality. You cannot quantify love, emotion, how much you are angry. I mean, you cannot put the numbers on how much you're the 50 kilograms of anger. That doesn't happen. So on those cases, you can ask, how do you feel angry from 1 to 10? 1 being least angry, 10 being the most angry. And your most angry is not same as someone else's most angry. So, it's hard to make it in a subjective or objective quantifiers. So in those cases, you use percentage or degree scale 1 to 10. Those are like a qualitative research. Quantitative research, on the other hand, you can use the numbers, measures that are like a centimeters, kilograms, and the frequency and so on. So that the numbers, statistics, more of quantitative. And there are researches that has to use both quality and quantity. So some studies are mixed, qualitative and quantitative together. So that's kind of category and types of research that you need to basically understand to understand the term or idea of research. Again, here is some more examples of help you to quantity versus quality. Say product development. It both requires, I told you that there are some researches that requires both qualitative and quantitative research. And the product development qualitative would involve exploring and go deep and seek understand. So these kind of the research approach in product development, while quantitative research, you quantify, you validate, and you make a decision. So these two goes together in this kind of research. Another major category or types of research would be whether you're going to do inductive or whether you're going to do deductive kind of research. So as it is shown in this particular diagram, PowerPoint, inductive, it requires observation and then generalization and into theory. So you examine what is happening, what the things are, and then make a generalization, or you have those findings, so-called. Once you have those findings, you analyze them, you theorize them, and come out with a theory or your own conclusion. So you do not start with a conclusion or answer. And the inductive approach is saying, I do not have an answer, it's an open question, and let me try to come up with an answer of my answer on this particular question. On the other hand, on the contrary, deductive approach or deductive research is, this is the answer. Someone said, okay, someone says this is the answer. Okay, let me try to verify or confirm or test then myself. So if I want to see that I come up with the same answer as he or she says. So there's already a conclusion or theory, and then you try to test that theory, and you experiment, and you validate. Validate means trying to say whether this is true or not. True or not. So validation is a very key term in doing a research. You want to validate and verify someone's answer or someone's theory, and that's deductive. So because of the nature of the study, deductive will be a little more easier to do than the inductive. When you are doing an inductive study or research, you are responsible for the whole theory you're creating. It takes a more creative approach and creative mind. And you are going to be responsible for your conclusion. On the other hand, this deductive, you're deducting and saying, examining someone else's theory or answer. So your job is just to know if this is really true. So it's less responsive than doing inductive. Inductive may cost you more, meaning it may take you more time and more resources in doing that research. Because you start with nothing basically. Only you have something called hypothesis as a possible conclusion. You kind of guess this might be the conclusion. But many times, in inductive study, you're starting with no conclusion or hypothesis at all. You are not suggesting or assuming anything. So that's kind of open research. Open research, another word, inductive research would be open research, while this is closed research. You are starting with nothing, no conclusion, and because of the nature of the study, you have to explore all the options, and that options can be many. For example, a good example would be the virus vaccine, finding virus vaccine for Corona-19 virus. The Corona-19 virus is a kind of coronavirus, but it is a new kind of coronavirus to human understanding. We have never seen this particular virus before. And you are trying to develop a vaccine, meaning there are hundreds and thousands different kind of materials that you need to test, see if this particular material or the chemical or whatever would be effective killing or weakening the virus without harming human being. And you should develop a immune system, not only kill the virus, but need to develop immune system within, immune response within a human being. So that would be like a basic condition, but you do not know which one. I mean, there's no clue. So they start with the chloroquine to deal with. That's not the vaccine. That is the cure. So there's a vaccine and cure, both. That's an open-ended question. So that's the kind of research that we are talking. It's inductive. You do not know answer. There's no possible answers yet. And then deductive would be some says, okay, let's say Pfizer, they have developed a vaccine and say this would be effective for human to develop an immune system against Corona-19, and it's safe for the human, and it is going to have least side effects. Then your job is trying to see if what they say is true. So that's validating and verifying. So there are those who do the verification, and this would be much easier than developing coronavirus vaccine. So these are kind of two different approaches. So deductive, you already have information, and then there is a pattern, and there's tentative hypothesis, and comes to theory. Inductive, I think this is other way around. Okay, let's skip this. Then there's something called research design. Research design. When you are trying to do a research, whether it's a simple research or complex research, you need to have a certain plan for doing a research, which is called research design. And in the research, you need to determine the types of research. We have just discussed that. And with the types of research, then you determine the methods. So these, determining the types, the subject and topics, and the method, and then types and the categories, and then you decide how to proceed with the research, the timeline, and then the steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are called research design. And any research, you are going to start with a plan. If you do not have a plan, you do not know where you're going. And the research design includes how you're going to present and report the research result. So these are all included. How much resources that you are going to use, how much time you're going to spend, how much money that you're going to spend, how many books that you're going to read, and how many people are going to be involved in that research. And these are all included in the research design. So research design itself, it takes a lot of serious effort and thinking process and communication and decision making. And well-planned research design, well-made research design will reduce all these problems and issues may come up with the research itself. So you want to spend more time, more energy and time putting into research design than research itself. It might sound funny or sound wrong to say you're going to put more time and energy into research design, but I believe that is going to help you to have much better research than starting with a weak and less prepared research design. So research design involves many different expertise and elements, but I'm trying to introduce just basic concept here. So this is a example of research design. So basically this is a step where you're trying to decide which methods, which kind of the approach that am I going to take to do this particular subject and topic of research. And these are the example for experimental and quasi-experimental design. It takes a systematic review, equivalent trial, non-inferiority trial. So this is more of like a graduate level, and then doctoral level kind of study, and usually applies to a very the so-called natural science, physiology, or chemistry, engineering. They need to do these things. And observational designs, more of like a qualitative study. It says prospective cohort, nested case control, retrospective cohort. These are very professional terms for the research designs and those highly academic researches. And then research methods. You can do the library, or just doing the checking list and then making the data presentation and so forth. So these are some examples. Another kind of example for the basic research methods. See, if you read these literature reviews, interviews, and you may use focus groups, and then you write dissertation and case studies, surveys, statistics. So these are all different techniques, actually, research techniques that use or utilize, trying to come up with the research design. So these are the elements that are included, and you need to consider when you are doing a research design. Once you decide which, you're not going to use all these methods or strategies or the techniques, but you're going to make a decisions to choose which method is appropriate for my research. So you are to decide which is the best fit or needed for your research, your kind of research. And that's included in the research design. So these are like elements that one need to consider in beginning a research. So like I said, good research outcome is going to happen when you have a good research design. Whether you're doing a pastoral research or sociological research, whatever the research, just a life research, if you're saying you're trying to find a place to live, it takes the research. And you want to decide the area, and then you want to decide the types of the living. Is it going to be one room, or is it going to be a studio, or do I need a 3-bedroom and 2-bath because I have children? So these are like considerations that you need to put into your research, and making a decision to find a place to live. So same thing with the pastoral. As a pastor and a teacher and a leader and parents, if you want to be to encounter this pastoral reality, And you need to plan and execute and evaluate and document those. And sometimes you make a report and share. Even if it's not like a formal form of like a presentation, it happens within the small groups. You're reporting your life, sharing your life. When you do that, you're doing that. You need to do the research. So let's take a short break and let me come back. Okay, we are back, and let's continue. Okay, lesson 2. Biblical foundation of pastoral research. For us Christians, whatever we do, whether it's our religious practice within a church, or the things that we do outside the church, just as other people do, it takes a biblical foundation, meaning that you are going to review the things that we do or we think against the Bible. Because the Bible it does have things to say about the things about the reality, including every area of life, whether it's economy, whether it's politics, whether it's your business or your marriage. I mean, these things, the Bible has to say something. It teaches what to and why and how. Because God wants us to live according to His plan, His design. Not because the God is authoritarian tyrant who wants to control our life, but because He wants knows and wants what is best for us and best for each and every individual. Sometimes best for me may not be the best for you. So God, He knows which is the best for each and every individual. The reason that He knows that and He wants that is because He created every single one of you in a very unique and special way. No one has the same face. They may look similar. Even the twins, they are not like the same copy of one another. They are different. Twins have different fingerprints, even though they are twins. So God has made each and every single person unique and special, thus have that value. And that's the intention of Bible, letting us know what is the best for us. What God is thinking is the best for each and every one of you. And dealing with the research that we are talking about. Research is let's say, even if it's a human invention, which is not. Research is not human invention. It's God Himself. He's a researcher, and He does research, and we are just imitation of Him. So even if the research is human invention, God has something to say to us. And the title here says, the biblical foundation. We are Homo sapiens, meaning a being with a thinking, a thoughts. So sapiens mean knowing and thinking and thoughts. The being with thinking and intellect. That's what it is. So we'll discuss this further. The divine design. Like I said, God had designed, because God created. When you're trying to create something, it begins there in your mind. In your mind. You have that design, the plan in your mind. Same thing with God, because we are created the way God is. God is thinking. God is designing. God is planning in such a way that it would have certain meaning, the significance and importance. And how did He do that when He began thinking about creating human beings? He says, let us make. So He is communicating with someone else, because it says, let us make. And then it says, let us make man in our own image, in our image, and in our likeness. That's what it says in the Bible. Look at this verse. Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over all the earth. If this is true, some believe this is not true, this is just made up story. In that case, we don't need any further discussion, because that person is not even suggesting a possibility of this might be true. Let's say if this is true, that's an inductive approach, open. We are not concluding anything. So that's kind of approach that we do need to when we do a Bible study. Any theology, any Christian doctrine that are taught, you do not assume and agree without verification and validation. It is your job to validate and verify. That's why you are to be a researcher. I told you that research means that you are doing your own work. You're putting your effort and your time to discover, to test if what I've been told is true. Or the question that I have, I'm going to find the answer myself. Even if someone suggests this might be the answer, you're not just taking it for granted without testing and verifying. That's the mind of researcher. So every Christian, especially the pastors and the leaders and teachers, you need to have that information and that knowledge as yours. If you're to teach that, if you do not own that knowledge and that understanding and that wisdom, then what you're pastoring and what you're teaching is not yours. No, that's fake. Simply it's fake. It's like telling a narrative, someone else's narrative, as if it's yours. See, that's a fake. That's a lie. So, same thing goes with this. Pastoral research is needed because research is you are examining it yourself and making and confirming and verifying and validating it to be true and take it. So, beginning with this statement in the Bible, this in the first chapter of Bible, in the first book of the Bible, Genesis, first book, first chapter, and verse will be 26, chapter 1, 26. Okay, God says, this is a statement from God. When God says something and the Bible quotes what God says, and we say this is truth. But is it truth for you? That's the question. Anyway, going back to the research, divine design says our image and our likeness. What does it mean? As I understand these, the image means the exact copy. The likeness means very similar, but not exact, the same. So basically what this saying is, let us make man, let's design a man. Just same as us, exactly the same as us, but with some difference. So there is something that is exactly the same as God. At the same time, there is something in us, in human being, that's not the exactly same as God, but very similar. So these are two different area or domain or dimension of human being. There's something that we are exact copy of God, while there's something that will be similar but not exactly the same. So that's how he designed us to be. And in that exact same thing, every person is made in the image and likeness of God. So the question is, which is the image and which is the likeness? Which part of us, a human being, is exact copy, the image of God, while which part is the likeness? So likeness and image and likeness. These are the two concepts that we are going to struggle with. And actually, you need to do some research on this, because it took me quite a while, many years of asking questions and struggling and trying to find what does it exactly mean. What does it mean? What does God is trying to say when he said this? And I want you to take some effort. And if you're a Christian, and if you believe you're called to be a pastor and a teacher and a leader, this is obviously one of the questions that you need to answer yourself. And many have different opinions and interpretation on this very verse. Even if it's one very verse, very short, and there are not many different variations of the statement itself, but the interpretation are very different from one to another. The reason I'm saying this is in the very nature of God, the image and in the likeness, there is that quality, the character, the personality of God, which is a researcher. God searches. And God has that intellectual ability which He gave us to us. So we took this intellectual ability and that intrigue meaning trying to search and find, and then that curiosity of trying to know something, to trying to get the knowledge and gain the substance. That is very nature of God. So it's in His image and in His likeness. We are like God. God is a researcher. He wants to search, and He is logical, He's rational, and God makes judgment, and so do we. So do we. Just like God is. Because when God is, and when He gave that same quality and ability to us, then we are obligated. Obligated. That's the word. Obligated meaning it becomes a mandate. So that's the word. The mandate means that we are obligated. It's a must. It's our responsibility. If you don't like a responsibility, fine. But being a Christian, it has two parts. We have privilege, the authority, power, and rank as a Christian. At the same time, because we have the power and ability and the authority and the rank, we have that much responsibility, duty, and mandate. Mandate is a responsibility. It's something we must. We must. As a being and doing. So in Genesis 1:28 says, God blessed them and God said unto them. This is Adam and Eve we are talking about. First man and first woman. The representative of human being. Whether you're male or female. Because for this mandate for Adam is mandate for a man. Mandate for Eve is a mandate for woman. Some mandates apply to both man and woman, and some mandate applies only to man, while some mandate apply to woman only. So it says unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth, or fill the earth in some other translation, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. So God gives this earth beautiful, well designed for comfort and peace, and He gave this to us, the human being, and says, you are responsible. You're going to take good care of it. But while you're trying to take a good care of it, you need to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. So it's a privilege. And the privilege of being there, filling the earth, lovely ecology and environment that is prepared for man to live comfortably and without lacking. And then God gives responsibility. So there is a privilege and responsibility, and both are included as so-called blessing. And in that, our ability to be able to do the research, meaning taking the look at the things and trying to appropriate that reality for the best of all the human beings, including yourself. That's the research. And that's a so-called stewardship. It is a stewardship. It is a mandate. So biblically speaking, even though you're not a pastor, even though you're not a teacher, even though you're not a leader, you're still a Christian. And every Christian are responsible to be a researcher in a good sense. In a good sense. In the broadest and the fullest sense of the word, the definition of the word research. So we're given with a reality. It's you, yourself, and it's your family, your children, your parents, your neighbors, your environment. These are the things that require research, a serious consideration and effort to spend your time and energy to appropriate or to make a best use of the reality for the others. So because you are there to benefit others, and by benefiting others, you're benefiting from them. That's how the Christian the theology, Christian reality, that Christian existence works, by benefiting others, doing taking others first, number one. Then it brings benefit and blessing to you. So that's how it is. And by blessing others, you are going to be blessed. See, the same thing. God blesses His creation, the human being. And then by doing that, he is going to be blessed. So that's kind of existence that we are talking about. So this so-called Genesis mandate, we just looked at this, it's a Genesis mandate. As the reality is given, the reality is perfect, completed. Only incompleted is Adam and Eve. They are given the chore, the responsibility of making the decision between good and evil. There was only incompletion in the context of Adam. But they make a wrong choice, wrong decision. Because, I can go on this, but so going back. Reality given, perfect, and then they are given that reality to be as a caregiver or caretaker. It's a nature to rule. Rule meaning to care, in another word. So when you find a rule in the Bible, it's not like a rule of just the vertical, commanding, authoritarian, and very tyrannical power rule. No, that's not the biblical concept of rule. When Bible says rule, as care, as a support, as a help and provision. So that's how you rule. And then stewardship of creation, the same thing. And life as a result. So the life, the existence itself, involved research. You need to be creative because God has given you everything that's needed to take care of the whole earth. The image and likeness as whole package. The tools, and one of the major tools is research. You think, you consider, you make a best judgment to produce the best out of this situation, the reality. So that's kind of research that we are talking about. And the Bible says we need to be a researcher. Because we need to bring out the best of our lives for others and for you as well. So, practice or exercise 1 for these Genesis people, Adam and Eve. They were given the task or the chores or assignments to work on. And they need to do research, I said. And they did a research. This will be research exercise 1 or practice 1. Genesis 2:19 says, "And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof." So the naming exercise, it takes a lot of research mind and research effort. Why? Because you need to find out which is which. You need to note, observe, and see the differences, their uniqueness, and the character. How tall they are, how short they are, what color is it, what shape is it, and then differentiate those, and then categorize them, and then name them. So naming is not just you don't throw the random name. Thus, naming is not just the name itself. Name means systematic organizing and understanding the reality. So the first reality was the nature that was given. And Adam did his own research using the image and likeness that was given to him by God. And he becomes a researcher and take that exercise, that assignment, and he does well. So he finishes naming all these things in Eden. We don't know how long it may took, but knowing there are hundreds, thousands of different species, even within the insects alone. I'm sure that Adam was 10 times smarter than us, who we are, because he was utilizing 100% of brain capacity. We are only using 10% or less. The smartest people on earth, they are using only 10% of their brain capacity, even though they are smartest. So still, Adam being at least 10 times smarter than us, it still would have taken quite an energy and time and effort in trying to give the name to these creatures. Well, that was one of the first research assignment that Adam had completed. The reason I'm doing this is, trying to figure out, who we are, how we were built, designed by God as a researcher. And I hope you may identify yourself doing all this just like Adam did. And Adam gave names to all cattle and to the fowl of the air and to every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found an helpmeet or helpmate for him. So he finishes his assignment. Why naming? What implication? Use of intellect and complexity. I already told you this. So to summarize, the naming means doing our research, identify, getting to know the reality. The same thing applies to us today. The reality may not be the nature because someone already have given the names of these creatures, but you're learning those names. So basically it's the same. For you to be able to identify each and every creature and the subject, the chair, unless you know that the name of this particular object is a chair, you haven't named it yet. So naming is the very first step of doing a research for any human being. Usually, most human beings, 99% of people, first naming is mother, mom, mommy. See, that's a naming. Someone tells you the name, and then you get to get it and actually say it, and then it becomes yours. So same thing that happened to Adam is happening to you. It might not be some animals, chairs, smartphone, television. These are the things that human created, and then still you need to learn, and to learn it, you're doing the research of your own. And the complexity, the reality, human reality becomes more complex due to technological development. And people say we are being more civilized. But to me, it's just being more complicated. Civilized, it means that you are becoming more of human being, more of, godly people, godly person. That's civilized for me. But, God requires us to use our intellect because that is a gift. That is an ability that is given to us. And God has same intellectual ability, and not the same, but much greater and better intellectual ability than us. But He has given that some of that ability to us. We do not know everything, while God knows everything. So that's the difference. But still, with that little given to us, which is quite a much because of that intellectual ability and ability to do research, trying to ask good questions and trying to answer that curiosity. We have come this far with all the technology. Without this kind of technology, it wouldn't be possible for me to give a lecture at this time of coronavirus. See, so we need to be very grateful and thankful to God. But at the same time, we are required to use that intellect, God-given intellect, doing research. Continue to do, especially as pastors and teachers within the Christian context. Our responsibility is to use that special intellect that is given to us to improve and better, to appropriate this pastoral context, the reality that is given to us. So we learn and grow. So there are students, our congregation, our church members grow and mature in the knowledge of God, knowing God. So our whole purpose of doing research, again, within the Christian context at least, is to help out our fellow believers to mature and grow, so they get to know God more and better and build a close relationship with God. So that's the whole purpose of doing the research within the Christian context. So to conclude today's lesson, we have reviewed some of the biblical basis for Christian research and pastoral research. And thank you for listening again. We'll continue this story and discussion next week. And have a wonderful, nice day, and God bless.